Hello and welcome to the I Must Ask You a Question show. Right now, it's just me, Jim Bardwell. It's just me, Tim Nichols. Jim Bardwell is having internet trouble in Boise, Idaho, and he's going to be chiming in with us when he can. But we have an interesting topic today. It's it's something that came up through a series of emails and was brought to my attention. Was asked, and I thought it was a fascinating question. And it was, what is your return on invest, or what is your ROI for 3 million%, our peer advisory program? And that got me to asking questions like, well, how do you define what is ROI? Because several people might define it differently. And I've kind of taken that in and kind of defined that. But what I want you to do as a listener is, in the comments, I want you to feel free to ask questions or make comments about your perception of what ROI is in regard to your relationship development, in regard to relationship marketing, and how you grow your business through that. Okay, because from a financial standpoint, me having spent 17 years as a financial advisor, ROI is typically return on investment, right? We have a certain way that we look at that, a certain way that we respond to that comment, to that thought. And in doing that, we really take a transactional look a lot of times at what we're spending versus what we're getting. And, I think a lot of times that is misplaced in the relationship marketing world, where it makes it become transactional. It makes that conversation transactional. It makes your attitude, your thought process transactional. And I just wanted to expand on that and kind of share some thoughts on how I see that, because, a question I might have is, what is your ROI for your college degree? What is your ROI for the service or social organizations that you're in? What is your ROI for your Chamber of Commerce membership? What is your ROI for uh, nonprofits? If you look at those things, those kind of questions can come up, and I want to go deeper on this. I really think there's a lot of conversation to be had in there. So once Jim gets signed on, he'll come into the show. But for now, I want to go ahead and launch into kind of some thoughts I had on the topic. Again, feel free to comment or ask questions. We want that from you. So let me get into this and share my screen here. So how do you measure ROI? I mean, what are you looking at there to make those determinations on how best to engage? I mean, how best to create these referral generating relationships instead of making it a transactional one off kind of a relationship? We don't want that, because those are short lived and they don't produce very much. So we want to get to a place where we're taking a deeper dive into what is and what does ROI mean to us. So here's what we'll do. Get back here. So how do you define ROI? Return on investment, return on influence, return on interaction. It's different for everybody. And I think it depends on what kind of business that you're in. If you're in a business that demands transactions like retail, let's say, then you're probably looking at a return on interaction, right? How good are your salespeople at converting conversations into revenue streams, right? Into transactions in a store type of a scene, right? Where you're selling things from a retail space. Now, return on investment, it to me is more of a mid-range type of a thought process. And then return on influence is long-term. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these and see what they mean. Return on interaction. So again, let's go back to the retail store. Short-term, right? It helps you create more proficient conversations. A reason you'd want to measure that is, especially if you've got sales staff, you're wanting to measure what it is they're saying, what words they're using, how they're using those words, how quickly they're building trust and how quickly they're responding to objections or answering questions of the person that's right in front of them, right? But that's retail, or I can't think of anything else right now that would require that short of a term type of an aspect. But if we back up a little bit into real estate agent, financial advisor, insurance agent, if they're counting on converting a new customer, new client in one conversation, then that can come across as pushy, right? That could come across as, or it would make that customer feel like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And they start building this wall of defense, right? For those of you that have experienced that before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that to see that wall go up is not exactly fun. So in return on interaction, we're looking to measure the flow of conversation, distractions, or diversions. So even those that have a longer term sales path, right, they actually need to still measure their conversations, see where their distractions and their diversions are coming from, if they chase rabbits or not. That's important for them in their conversations to maintain some sort of control or focus in that conversation. Also, it's useful to learn how to approach future interactions to more quickly make them productive. And I do caution you though, because if you start basing your relationship with someone on one's willingness to buy from you, your product or service, that can be very damaging to you both. Because then, let's say if they were never going to do business with you and they were just being polite in having that conversation with you, they would never want to talk to you again if you kept pressuring them. But some way I always approached that was to look at them as a potential referral generator and see what I could do to deepen that relationship with them and help them more than they could help me. So I was always working towards deepening that relationship quickly so that I could leverage networks and establish this community around them. Hey, it looks like Jim is joining us. Let me get over to him. Hey, Jim.
Well, hello there, Tim. How are you guys?
Doing good. Doing good. I was just in the middle of explaining how perceptions of what ROI is to different people. And I was just telling about return on interaction and how that's useful for retail and people who have to convert transactions quickly through interactions with customers, but how in the relationship development type business where we've got, let's say, financial advisors, insurance agents, real estate agents, that could actually be costly if they're counting on converting those interactions every time they have a conversation. So the caution there, and I'm moving on from this point, Jim, the caution there is one's willingness to buy your product or service. Don't base the whole relationship on that. So any thoughts on that? I know you're just chiming in and you're trying to catch up with me, but I know that you've got some great thoughts on this.
Well, I do, Tim, and I tell you, I've got some great thoughts on the finer workings of the internet too. But we won't talk about that right now.
I understand.
I'm one of those people that it's kind of like I understand how the basics of how something works, but then you sit there and say, why when I turned the knob at 10:30 the light came on, and then at 1 o'clock I turned the same knob and the light don't come on? I don't get that. Either just stuff's supposed to work or not. But anyway,
right.
All right.
Well, let me back up real quick. Can I back up real quick and catch you up?
Yeah,
so we're
sure.
looking at
give me a quick catch up.
We're looking at defining what ROI means and what it would mean to different businesses. So I just talked about return on interaction, but there's also return on investment, which is what most people know that term as. And then something I like to think of as return on influence. So we're taking a look at each of these and trying to just give ideas as to how we could perceive those, how we could use those. Okay.
All right. I apologize. I tell you, it's been fun. I'm in my dining room under a flickering lamp. So anyway, you guys are just gonna have special effects through this whole thing. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, it was funny when you reached out to me about this topic, Tim. I told you, I think I told you that I do have an opinion about all this. I don't know how many people are going to like my opinion, because my opinion can sometimes come across a bit rough, a bit scratchy, a bit direct. But I just look at it this way: if you're going into something expecting a designated outcome, you're missing the whole point of relationships. And that if I sit down at my desk with my taxes and a calculator, I'm expecting a very easily quantifiable outcome. It's math. It's a calculator. They're numbers. And if I get to the bottom of that paperwork and the taxes are not adding up, then I know I've made a mistake somewhere and I go back and start all over again. Right, Tim? I mean, it's that's why we trust math with things like, our taxes. I mean, we trust math with our lives. We get into airplanes that fly through the sky, which they would not be flying without math, correct?
Right.
Relationships is that is not the way to go into building a relationship for the sake of the outcomes that we often see happen out of these types of relationships. Again, and a lot of this has to do with a lot of nuances, Tim. I mean, we're talking about personalities. We're talking about if somebody has a D personality, a C personality, an S personality, an I personality, right? It's easier sometimes for people to understand a topic based on where their vision is or their point of view is. And so this is a really, really deep, nuanced subject. Trying to come up with an overall look at it, yes, I encourage people to not try and make this as simple as it seems on the surface. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very complex and complicated interchange. Do I go into my relationships expecting to get something out of it? Of course we do. You wouldn't be human if you didn't, right?
Right.
But what is it I'm expecting to get out of it? That's really, I think, what gets a lot of people in trouble. It depends on where you're at in your career. When you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage at the end of the month, and every single minute seems so vitally important, and you can certainly have an outlook based on that life situation you find yourself in. But I don't think that should change it. I think that if a young person came to me and said, "Hey, I'm just starting out for my career. I can't, I can barely pay attention." If I'm spending time talking to somebody, that's got to be making me money, man. I got to be making money. If I'm talking to somebody, I got to be making money. I usually will tell that person, Tim, friend, that's a deeper conversation you and I can have standing up here at this networking meeting. Can we circle back around, maybe have lunch, because in my 54-year-old at the fruition of my career, I have a different attitude about that, and I have a different outlook. And then maybe I can share with them the greatest gifts I've ever received, the greatest monetary, professional, my very marriage. All of those are a direct result of going into a relationship without putting undue expectation and certainly without putting monetary expectation on it. And again, people might be saying, "Well, Jim, that's easy for you to say. Look at you, man. You're at the, you're successful. You've got money in the bank, and you're not starving, and you're not going through any trials and tribulations, and you don't understand the life situation I'm in. I don't have time to make friends. I don't have time to make buddies. I've got to make money." Well, looks can be deceiving. It'd be real easy for me right now in my life situation with everything that's happened since March with COVID-19, and my career has gone completely topsy-turvy. It'd be really simple for me to be saying, you know what, unless somebody's going to make that cash register ring, I don't have time for them. But what I'm bringing to the table, Tim, is the benefit of being 54 years old and being in my career long enough to see that that is a really, really slippery slope. And I've got to guard myself against that. I've got to try and look past the short-term gain, look past the monetary gain of every relationship, and realize that sometimes, you know, it's taking those extra few minutes, spending time with somebody who maybe doesn't meet my profile status, right? I meet my profile. I sit down before the network meeting. I draw out, what does my perfect candidate look like? What does my perfect person look like? You know, people don't know a lot about what I do, but I'm in a situation where we attract people to come in, and kind of like a franchise where they buy in and they represent our product, goods, and services across the country. So I've got people that I've been talking to for years, and guess what? They still haven't signed up, Tim. They still haven't signed up. But you know what some of those people ended up doing? They've sent me other people that signed up. I know that sounds crazy. They themselves have not joined the team. They themselves have not become part of the group, but they have passed on people who have. So in that instance right there, what if I'd have been short-sighted and said, you know, I've talked to this person 3 or 4 times. I don't think this is going anywhere. I don't think they're ever going to sign up. I don't have time for them. I'm not taking their phone call. When I see them on the caller ID, oh, that's that guy I've been talking to for 6 months. He's never going to sign up. That's a whole lot of talking, and I don't know if that's exactly what we were looking for, but I tell you, I really would caution everyone to not look at everything as math. It's not all math. It's much deeper than what that calculator is going to tell you.
Right. And so, you know, I had someone earlier, I did this same talk, I guess, with my 3 million% members in a training this morning. And someone in the call, in the live stream, asked, how do I convey return on influence to someone that wouldn't know? Right. And it triggered a long response from me. In fact, I went back and I had originally hardly had any words in this little presentation I'm keeping my mind straight here with on the screen. But the more I got to thinking about it, the more value I saw in the other ways of doing it as well. But it's like I come from an agricultural background, used to be an agricultural science teacher. So I think in crop production as well as livestock production. But one thing that hit me is that you always need to be planting, because you always need new relationships that are growing. You always need to have a midlife in those crops. And also you need to be harvesting on a regular basis as well. Right. But the senior crops aren't going to last forever. In fact, the better production they have, the closer they are to dying. Right. And so you have to be bringing along these midlife crops and bringing them, and you got to water them, you got to feed, you got to fertilize. You know, you've got to do all of these things. You got to control pests. You've got all this other stuff to do to basically nurture those into senior productive crops. But you've also got to be planning all the time too. And so it really hit me that the return on investment that we're talking about is really more of a medium term metric to make decisions on where to focus on building relationships. So that, going back to the farm analogy, measuring the fertility of the land in which you're planting, right? If you're planting in good soil, you're going to accelerate the growth of whatever it is you're planting, right? Or whatever it is you're trying to grow. So a good rich soil requires less time, effort, and money to generate production, to generate fruitful production out of that. But at the same time, just like what's happening in California and Oregon with the fires, there's a lot of good crop and timberland being burned up there, and a lot of good herds are being burned. And the thing is you've got to spread out. You got to diversify and plant in different areas, because you don't know whatever's going to transpire with where you're planting. And so don't bet the whole farming operation on one plot of land is what I'm getting at. The soil changes, the weather changes, and people change.
And that's a great analogy, Tim. And something else to be open to and realize that sometimes, again, you and I've talked about this a few times before on different calls. It's not necessarily what you get by working towards something. Sometimes it's what you become on the way. It's what you find out to be a benefit along the way.
I hit on that on the return on influence part, because to me, that's like the long-term metric or the lifetime production of the whole farming operation, instead of something transactional. So the relationships that I've built and the referral generation that has come from that, I've nurtured those relationships for years and years. And the more you nurture those and the more you pour into those people, the better referral generators they produce. But sometimes they move away. Sometimes they change jobs where they're no longer able to help you as much. Sometimes they retire, and so it's always changing. But the process that produces those steady streams, it's what you're trying to measure over long periods of time. So I liked this, and I'm going to read it. The measure of soil management, pest control, equipment maintenance, removing unwanted plant growth. So I'm removing toxic people from your life there. Fence, setting boundaries, and structural maintenance, right? Physical, mental, efficient harvest practices, and proper watering, fertilizing, and growth of those crops over a lifetime of production. So it's what you become by living that lifestyle that is the return on influence, but that's what creates most of your referral generation.
Absolutely. And again, it's funny. It's almost become a cliche thing. We were referring to this as in planting and crops and everything, but it is such a great analogy and it's such a great teaching tool. I'm going to show my age here a bit, but when I got out of the service and I went to college, I took a basic, I forgot the name of it. It was just a basic business course, right? It was like, whatever, business 101, intro to business or something like it. It's an introductory type level course, a freshman level course. And back then, you know what they used to tell you? You're going to laugh, but maybe, I don't know, Tim, you're not, I think I'm a bit older than you are, but back then they told you that when you started a business, you better have a year's worth of savings, that you cannot expect to make any profit for a year. Do you remember that in the good old days? They say, now, if you start you a little insurance business, or you start you some type of little business, you need to make sure, or if you write a business plan and take it to a bank to get a business loan, you need to have enough operating capital to last 12 months without making any profit. And you don't hear that anymore. You don't hear that anymore, Tim. We live in a shake and bake microwave world. I go to networking meetings all the time, and I mean, people get up there and like, let me tell you something. You sign on with this program, and 90 days from now, you'll be making money. You'll be making money in 60 days. And okay, I'm not going to point my finger and call someone a liar and tell them that they're telling untruths or half truths or what have you. But what message are we sending? We're telling these people that when they start up a little business, that unless they go to a networking meeting, meet somebody, and within the next time they talk, they're making the cash register ring, well, they have no value. And that's just not the case. That is not how this big earth is wired. There is no shortcut. There is no get-rich-quick scheme. One time I was at a franchise show. We used to represent our opportunities through franchise shows, and this guy says, now listen, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. And then he proceeds to tell the audience how they could get rich in 90 days. Now, to me, Tim, 90 days seems pretty quick. That seems like a pretty quick get-rich-quick scheme if you're talking somebody's going to be making money in 90 days.
That's what we call talking out of both sides of your mouth where I come from.
That's right. When you say, hey, this ain't a get-rich-quick scheme, but you'll be making profit in 90 days, man, that seems pretty quick to me. what is a not rich quick scheme? I mean, what does that take a month?
Right.
I mean, or what is a get rich quick scheme? And I think that's a lot of what's going on as I talk to young people, maybe not even young people, but anybody that's in the the egg stage of their business. They're just hatching their little chick, right? It's just now getting started. I mean, they're coming unglued if they're not making profit in 30 days. If they're not, if the third or fourth time they go to a networking meeting, if that cash register isn't ringing, they just think it doesn't have any value. This is not getting me anywhere. I'm not, I have been at networking meetings and sitting there talking to a fella. He's got his hands on his hips. He looks a little perturbed. Hey, friend, how are you? Nice to meet you. What are you doing here? Where are you from? Who am I? And all that good stuff. We start going back and forth. And what do you think about this? What do you think about this whole thing? Well, it's pretty good. I've had some success, and this is what I think about this and that and the other. Yeah, well, this is my third time here, and I'll tell you, I haven't made a dime. Third time. That's exactly. He's been there 3 times. He ain't made a dime. And I'm spending. This thing's expensive, man. This costs me $42 a month. I spend $42 a month, and I've been here 3 times. And I ain't made a dime.
Yep.
And so I think that's a lot. That's really getting into our psyche. People just are really. I think our expectations of what success looks like, of what failure looks like. Again, I guess I'm showing my how long my teeth are, but when Fiber Protector America first started, we had a 5-year plan. 5 years, not 5 months, no, 5 years. We knew how long it was going to take to get established and get where we were. And you know what? That's about how long it took. Yeah, that was a realistic expectation of how long it would take to go from 0 licensees to 50. That's how long it's going to take. Get on board with this. It's the fastest growing franchise in America. Get on the internet and Google some of the franchise disasters in America. I'm talking ones that end up in federal court and people go to prison. Okay, disasters. Ooh, they're fast growing. Oh my gosh. I mean, they go from no licensees, no franchisees to millions of people signing up in just 2 years. That's just not how the universe is wired, is it, Tim?
Nope. And you're talking about that. I was talking earlier with someone about this very topic and about how some people have now been raised to expect things to come to them quickly, right? And so they're used to, just even think about the VCR days. You'd have to go to Blockbuster or something like that and rent a VHS tape and bring it home and plug it in, and then go through previews and all that kind of stuff and watch the movie. And then make sure you rewind it or put it in the little rewinder and you take it back to the Blockbuster or whatever. And it was a process to watch a movie in a VCR, right? Well, now you got Netflix or Amazon and you can just get on there, click and pay, and bam, you've got the movie right in front of you. Well, a lot of people, I think, now view life that way, especially transactional businesses. So they either get frustrated at their business or at the platform on which they're trying to grow or build relationships, but it's never their fault. It's never their fault, right? And it's never the actions that they're taking or the processes that they're using to build relationships. And I think a lot of this convenience type mindset has bred small-mindedness or short-sightedness, and they've lost view of the long game.
Well, and here's the thing about the long game. The long game takes a long time.
Right.
They call it the long game, not because of the side of the field. We're not talking about physical distance. We're talking about time. We're talking about energy and effort. Are there overnight successes? Perhaps. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's that doesn't exist, that never happens, that lightning never strikes. But everybody I've ever met who was an overnight success, it just appeared that way. And once I got to know them, people, as we like to quote our mentor, Mr. Zig Ziglar, a lot of people that know him on a surface, in other words, they've read a book or listened to a recording or seen a video or maybe have seen something of his published or something like that. They make assumptions that are usually incorrect.
Yep.
Now, the answer to this. How old was Zig Ziglar when he wrote his first book?
Was he in his 40s, 45?
Exactly. People, he didn't, quote unquote, hit the big time. He wasn't speaking up in front of the big stage until he was in his 50s. And what was he doing all the way up until then? Was he just sitting around whistling Dixie? I mean, was he just twiddling his thumbs? Was he just goofing off? No.
He was doing the seminars, wasn't he? Wasn't he videotaping?
No, but I'm saying that he had a lifetime of experience that led to that.
Of sales and door-to-door sales.
Yeah, that did not happen overnight.
Yeah.
That there was a lot of hard work and a lot of missteps, a lot of scary times, a lot of opening that checkbook and realizing the only thing in there was some glue and some dried up paper. There was no money in there. There was nothing,
Right.
And so I think that those parts of people's stories, we're getting an abridged version of success today. Okay, we're getting an abridged version of success. Or people are just skipping over the first 3 chapters. I think sensationalism sells. So people want to hear they want to hear a Cinderella story. They want to hear somebody just overnight became successful and got rich and hit the ball out of the park the first time they came up to bat. But all the great stories of business, of entertainment, of sports, of politics, it's a long story. There is no overnight success. People say, well, Barack Obama became president at such a young age. He was a freshman senator, and next thing you know, he became president. That's not true. Okay. Barack Obama was young in age, yes, but he had spent this man was in politics when he was in high school. He was heavily involved in politics in college. He was yes, he moved maybe a little faster than others, but it wasn't overnight.
That's right.
He wasn't a grocery store clerk and then 2 weeks later was the president of the United States. That's not how it happens. Okay? He wasn't a grocery store clerk and then a year later he was president of the United States. It's not how it happens. So I think that all of this revolves around a mindset that we always end up coming back to, a mindset reality of what things really require.
Right. I can't tell if you're still with me. You're frozen.
We're really going to act.
Are you with me?
We're back.
Uh-oh. Internet's giving you trouble again, I think. Now you're back, it looks like. So, as you were talking about that.
I'm back in action.
Good. So, as you were talking about that, I thought of Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. And I don't know if you've ever read it, but for any listeners, I do encourage you to read that book because Outliers talks about 10,000 hours is the magic number for an overnight success. Right? That's the outlier number. So, for example, the Beatles appeared to just come out of nowhere, right? The Beatles came out of nowhere and were an overnight success, but they spent 10,000 hours playing at one bar that nobody went to.
Yep.
Right? And they began to develop this following way out there that was way out in the country or in a small little town. And the funny thing is that nobody was really there to listen, right? And so they started off just trying to play together to get anything they could together. And what happened is they started harmonizing better. They started playing their instruments better. They started doing everything better and didn't have to worry about memorizing the song so much. And then they could play off of each other's instruments as by sound as opposed to what was just on the page. Right. And so they developed this sense of community, this rich sense of oneness through their 10,000 hours that they spent where nobody was really listening to them. So when they hit big time, they could do all of this stuff and everybody's going, wow, why haven't we ever heard of them? Right. And there was story after story in that Outliers book about that. But 10,000 hours is the magic number for an overnight success.
And I think a lot of people skip over the part of the story of the, the lean years, right? You know, while they were doing all that, I promise you that they probably had many a night where they had rice and beans, and then the next night they had beans and rice.
And they spent the night in the van.
And they slept in the van. And, again, they're just, I tell you, I've had people ask me this before. Jim, you're really good at relationship marketing. What's a shortcut? How can I get relational dominance in a market? Well, just that statement, how can I achieve relational dominance in a market? You're missing the point of relationship marketing. That's a very aggressive. Think about that statement. I want to attain relational dominance in my market as quickly as possible. Okay. So
those are the people I invite to 3 million% because we growth hack influence. And I'm like, this is the process. If you want to shortcut it, I'm not saying it's going to be overnight, but if you want to grow faster, this is how it has to happen, right?
Yeah. People say there's no shortcuts. Well, there might not be a shortcut that is easy. There might not be a shortcut that's convenient, but there are shortcuts. Where I live here in Boise, Idaho, just 10 minutes up the street, it starts some hills. And those hills quickly turn into mountains here in Idaho. Okay. And, there is a way to get from here to the city up north of here. That's the most direct way. And then there's a way to get there that is even harder than that. It's you're going to cut right across the mountains. Okay. And so there is a shortcut. There is a shortcut, but it's way more strenuous, and you've got to be willing to put that extra effort in. So when someone says, I want to attain relational dominance in my market fast, I think sometimes well, wait a minute, a shortcut is the easier route. A shortcut means I don't have to work as hard. A shortcut means I get it, I can get there without as much mud on my shoes. No, it's the opposite. Usually, if you get a shortcut, you're going to go through the briars and the brambles and you're going to get your shoes muddy, and it's going to be a lot more hard work. If someone says, hey, Tim, if I join 3 million%, can I get embedded in my local community faster? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But it's a meeting you got to attend, and it's a buy-in that you've got to make your mind that you want to buy into it. You got to show up, and it's giver's gain. You got to give. You've got to, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks, someone joining those groups and, well, what am I going to get out of this? What am I going to get out of this? Well, right out of the gate, man, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. If they're worried more about what they're going to get than the work that they're going to put into it, and that what is going to be the outcome of me giving to this situation? See, that's the way I like to look at things. I don't think that is as mercenary, right? Yeah. So if I say, well, Tim, you and I are going to be friends, and that friendship is going to manifest itself in me being on the show and me participating with you in different things. If I just say, well, wait a minute here, let me get out the old calculator and the slide rule and the abacus here and start taking notes and adding it all up, and boy, what's going to be my get out of it, right?
Right.
On the front end of this thing, there's not a whole lot of get. There's not. Later, you ain't gonna hit that button very many. We don't have the same potential to meet the same types of people that I'm. So, what am I doing here? Well, I tell you, again, I go back to, again, what am I doing here? I'm 54 years old. I have learned this lesson over and over and over, that it's mind numbing. It's mind boggling, the great gifts that I've received for being willing to give. You know, whatever we're going to put into something, I'm going to get it in return. And
Yep.
so even if all I'm doing is giving up my time, right? If someone says, I'm worried about time, I'm worried, I can't waste time on these people. I can't waste time talking to those people. At the very minimum, if you believe in this, and we don't have to get into religion, if you just believe that the universe is wired this way, that whatever you put into it, you're going to get out, right? If you put money into something, you're probably going to get money back out of it. If I put my time into something, then I'm going to get back time. How is that time going to manifest itself? Well, what if that person that you're talking to, that you're giving that time to, that you're making a gift of your time to, comes up to you one day and say, hey, listen, I know that, haven't been able to figure out a way for me to buy any of your insurance, but my grandparents have had the same insurance agent for 47 years. He passed away and they need a new insurance agent. I've already sold them on you. Here's their name and number. Just switch over the policies. Just switch them over into your name. You're now their agent. You have just been given the gift of time.
Yep.
You are not going to invest any time at all in that couple. You're just going to go switch. You're going to go call them on the phone and get in the computer and switch it over to your name. And you're going to start making that commission. And I've had insurance agents tell me that happens all the time. All the time. And so that's really what this thing boils down to, is being open to that. Being open to that return is going to be a like return, and it's going to come back to you.
And that's where the return on influence idea comes from me, as opposed to return on investment. Because if I were to try to calculate what I had received from and where, number one, if I can calculate it, I'm already thinking too small. That's how I see it. If I can actually track every person back to a transaction that developed out of a relationship from a specific platform I use, I've got too much time to do that then, and I'm already thinking too small. I'm trying to, like, when I talk about deepening relationships quickly, I'm trying to go one or two levels deep into someone's network to create referral generation from where I don't even know where it comes from. Where I've got people being referred to me, or let's say now our members, we're trying to generate referrals from people that we didn't even expect, because we've helped so many businesses. Now we've created this generator of referrals that would produce a steady stream of income later into many years to come. That wouldn't be transactional. It's just deep and wide. And so, that's exactly what I'm going at. I'm talking about on the return on influence part. And I don't know that I have any more to add on that. But listeners, feel free to comment, ask questions. We'd love to hear your stories. Please join in the conversation with us. Now, Jim, let's say with your licensees, what are some things that they are doing? Because I noticed they cover pretty large territories. What are some things that you're teaching them to do to try to develop this in their markets?
Well, you touched on it earlier. Now listen, I'm not saying run around the city and just, oh, well, looky there. There's a pool hall. Let me just go in that pool hall and make friends. Well, I mean, if you're in the business of selling pool felt, or if you're in the business of selling pool balls, or if you're in the business of selling beer, or if you're in the business of selling peanuts, or if you're in the business, then it makes sense. Maybe you should go hang out at pool halls and build relationships there, because that is a field where your seed is going to find a good place to grow.
Right.
Now, if you're an insurance agent and you're in the business of selling auto, home, and life, and you say, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to go down to the softball field and hang out with all them kids playing softball. I'm going to make some friends with those kids playing softball. Those kids are not in the market to buy all that stuff yet. Okay. And so there is wisdom. There is wisdom. So what we teach our licensees is to go build those relationships, to go be a giver unto those communities that are in a position to buy your goods and services. That just makes sense. Okay. You know, there are good people. There are good people in all markets. Okay. There are great relationships, potential relationships in all markets, whatever product, good, or service you're selling. Okay. But there's nothing wrong with being a bit wise about it and saying, well, you know, the issue I have, Tim, is that is the mindset, again, that people fall into, that every single interaction, every single conversation, say they do go to, like our product, good, or service is sold primarily through the interior design trade and partnerships with folks like that, and furniture stores, rug manufacturers, people like that. And you go to those places. You go to a after hours designer, say Association of Interior Designers has an after hours function. That's a great place to go to. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. You've done that correct. That doesn't mean you walk in there. Hi, how are you? I'm Jim. I'm with Fire Protect America. What's your name? Bob. Okay, Bob, what do you do? Oh, I'm not a designer, and I don't, I'm just, I work, I load the trucks back here in the back. Oh, okay, great, Bob. We'll see you later. Enjoy the hors d'oeuvres, and I'll catch you on the flip side. That's the thing you got to guard yourself against,
Right.
that being that short-sightedness, not really thinking, well, Bob ain't never going to, he's never going to refer my product. He's never going to, be in a position to make me a bunch of money. That's what we're talking about.
Well, and Ginger Dover here says that she's new financial advisor, and she says, thank you for time and information, but she's just getting into the networking and learning how to do this correctly. And by the way, she was a Marine, so thank you for your service, Ginger. And anyway, we're looking forward to seeing how you use this, but feel free to share with us how you're using that as well.
All right, fantastic. I spent many good experiences with the Marine Corps. I was in an Army unit that did some stuff that crossed over, and we ended up sometimes in the same mud and sand. So that's awesome.
So back to what we were saying about events. One thing that I really tried to do in trying to change the conversation from this transactional sounding tone, right? That's where I came up with my 5 keys for 3 million% and how I used those so effectively. But number one was deepen relationships quickly. And how I would do that is try to find someone or something in common as quickly as possible. And, I would work from there to try to ask questions and learn more about them and really go deep into that. And I would, even if asked about my business, I would be very high level with them, very general. And I would want to get into that with them later so that we could focus on deepening our relationship first, because I wanted to take the transactional concept out of their thinking and make it where it wasn't even an idea for them to start raising defenses with me. And so in doing that, I really worked hard to try to train myself to do that, because I had ingrained in me from a financial advisory career, to profile every person you met, right? And I just found myself doing that automatically. But I thought if I could just change the questions that I'm wanting to ask them anyway, it takes the focus off the financial and more about them. And then it made me have to worry less, because I think so much with these new, I want to say, people that are new to business or new to their communities, that are so tempted, that need the money right now, that are so tempted to be transactional. That hunger comes out in their tone. It comes out in their words. And as soon as they start doing that, people say, oh man, they're too aggressive. I mean, we've got people even within the program, they're just so aggressive that I get calls saying, hey, can you get this person to back off some? you know, and it's like, well, this is a peer advisory program. So is that my place or yours? Right. But the thing is if we can just start changing that mindset as to how and why we're going after referral generation, but if we can get a transaction right now, we'll take it. But that's not our focus, because if it is our focus, then we're going to start misspeaking, misstepping, and raising defensive walls.
Well, and it goes into the whole, the philosophy and teaching of, you will become what you think about. And so if you walk into that networking meeting and all you're thinking about is, it's the 28th day of the month, and I am 10 transactions behind goal, and it's got to happen today. I've got to get a transaction today. Okay, that's what's going on in my mind, right? That's the thing that I'm thinking about, right? You become what you think about. And so you say, well, that's good, Jim. I want a transaction, so I need to be thinking about a transaction. It's a tricky thing, though. It really is. And what I try and teach our people is, instead of pinpointing into the transaction, think of yourself as hitting your goal for the month. You're sitting outside that networking meeting. You say, you know what? I'm going to hit my goal this month. It's going to be okay. I'm going to hit my numbers this month. I'm going to have the right amount of transactions. I'm going to be successful this month. Okay. I am what I'm thinking about. I am envisioning myself being successful this month. You see, you walk in there with that energy, and now you start creating attraction. Instead of creating desperation and putting people off, you create an air of success. I am successful. Tim, It never ceases to amaze me how I'll call business friends of mine, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, this COVID-19 was the greatest thing that happened to most of these people, because now they had something they could really hang their hat on. Oh my gosh! I tell you what, it's the 20th.
How bad things are.
Oh yeah, we're behind. We've never been this behind. This is the worst month in 27 years I've been doing this. I tell you, this is just the most horrible thing. And Jim, how is things going with your man? We're doing fantastic. I'm so grateful for the transactions we've had this month. I've almost been surprised, because if I turn on the news, we're all supposed to be in a bunker, starving to death. And the fact that I'm having transactions and selling product and meeting new people. And I mean, we just signed up 2 new licensees in the middle of a pandemic. We signed up 2 new licensees. Can you believe that? And what's funny, Tim, is on the other side of the phone, there'll be silence.
They were hoping that you would have it bad so they could have company.
Misery loves company. And when you talk positive, now listen, that doesn't mean that my life was free of heartache. We could commiserate all day long. Trust me, we could have just both pulled out our violins and been crying before that was all said and done, right?
Right.
But it's just been proven to me over and over and over again. The key to attraction is to be what people are not expecting.
True.
If this whole world is just expecting doom and gloom and boo hoo hoo, this is all bad, right? And you come along and you say, man, it's the 28th of the month, and I'm just glad to be here, man. I tell you, I'm excited. The person that just made a comment, I'm new to the financial advisory. Here's my background, and I'm excited to be here. This is a new town for me, and I just got out of the military and had a great experience with the military and love my country. You start talking like that, and people won't make an excuse to get away from you. People won't, well, good. Nice to meet you there, young man. You cheer up. It'll get better. I know it's the 28th of the month, and you haven't had enough transactions, and your wife is telling you if you don't, sell something to somebody here today that you can't come home, but it'll be okay, buddy. It'll be okay. Instead of that, man, you started telling them how wonderful things are, and you're excited about this opportunity, and and you want to be an active member of this group and what you can bring to the table and your military background, and you start talking about stuff like that, man, before long you realize two people are talking to you.
That's
and next
right.
thing you know, you got a little crowd around you. That's how I know when I leave a networking meeting, Tim, if I haven't created a little crowd, if I haven't brought in 2 or 3 people surrounding me, listening to my latest story, then I haven't been successful. Okay.
Well, by the way, Michael Dressel said he asked the question, "How can I help you?" And that is a good question to ask.
That's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic. If that person is sitting there saying, I'm struggling, man. This COVID-19 took me by surprise and wiped out my savings, and I don't know, man. I'm hanging in there. I'm here at the old networking meeting. I know I got to keep at it. And man, if he turned his head to the side just a little bit and stuck his hand out like that and said, "Man, I tell you, I'm sorry to hear that, friend. How can I help you? I'm a financial advisor. I don't know that you need any financial advice, but I know a thing or two about numbers, and I know a thing or two about other things, and I'd love to help you any way I could."
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic thing to say.
Well, and something that, you know, a lot of people, I hear what you hear. I hear that a lot of people are just finding ways to be down, right? And I'm seeing, I see marriages fall apart and people questioning their business. They're trying to go find extra income from other jobs and things like that. But something I find curious is that 3 million% membership has grown by about 20% per month over the last 4 months, which is incredible. And we've in 10 months we've grown into 5 states organically. And so much of that has come from the change in mindset of our members, where we've become this active, I'm going to say, militia of encouragement.
Mm.
We just go out into the community and we just dig into people and build them up where they are. And it's amazing how infectious that is. So we go and build these people up, and people are like, how do I get into that?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so different than any other networking groups or something like that? And they're like, I need to know more about this. And so it's interesting, even like I'm in random Facebook groups and stuff like that. And I've had people come from towns that we don't even have any representation in saying, I want in. How do I do that? And so the depth of relationship is so crucial, but that encouragement piece is such a strong piece of that, where we're not even talking about our own businesses anymore, except within the groups.
Right.
It makes it where we don't have to sell ourselves. We sell something bigger than us. We sell hope and we sell encouragement.
And the bottom line is that just is never a bad thing. If somebody's having a great year and they're having success and their business is going great and they're happy with their
I think your internet got you. While Jim's taking a break, does anyone have any comments or questions to add? We'd love to have you engage in the conversation with us. Yep, I guess Jim has dropped officially. So back to where we were. We are right at an hour anyway, and I so appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming, listening to the call, and I really hope that you find engagement here. I see Jim coming back on right here to, as we say bye on this. But
there I am. Okay.
Well, Jim, I was just telling them we're right at an hour here, and I'm glad that you could make it back on. I know your internet's giving you a hard time. Any parting thoughts for us?
Well, my only parting thought, Tim, would be that this stuff we're talking about here, the relational side of the interactions that you have with people, don't shortchange yourself. Don't shortchange yourself. And guys, I've been there. Again, you know, I've had a roller coaster ride my own self. I'm sitting here in Boise. I'm in a whole new city, a whole new place, whole new. I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy ride this year. Okay, so I'm not immune from the reality of life. What I try and do though is realize that quite often, it is not the cover of the book that ends up being what you get out of reading it. Okay, the cover of the book might be what attracts you to it. The cover of the book might catch your eye, right? That author or that swashbuckling pirate with that sword drawn, you might say, "Man, that looks interesting. Let me go after that." But often in life, it's what is the unseen benefit, right? You know, Tim, we've been using planting crops this whole show, and you know, when I was growing up in South Louisiana, every year we went and toured the Tabasco farm where they make Tabasco sauce. And it's a very interesting story about that family and how they ended up becoming the, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry they are. And it's not from purpose. They did not set out to be that. They were handed many, many, many trials, many tribulations. How they even decided to make hot sauce was because all their other crops had failed.
They had to eat a lot of peppers, I'm sure.
Yeah, the Civil War had destroyed their family farm. Okay, they had nothing, but they had these peppers growing wild out in the corners of the fields. And the thing about peppers is they don't need a lot of hands. They don't need a lot of help. All you got to do is water them. And in South Louisiana, it rains a lot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then even down to the bottle that the hot sauce. Everybody's familiar with Tabasco, right? That funny little bottle. That wasn't by design. They had no money. They went to a bottler in New Orleans and said, "Hey, we want to bottle our hot sauce." He said, "Well, it'll be this much money." They said, "We got no money." And he laughed. He said, "Well, what are you doing here then? You ain't got no money. You can't come in here."
Mm-hmm.
You know what he told him? He said, "Hey, I got a perfume company that stiffed me on the order of bottles. If you're willing to use those perfume bottles, you can have those on consignment." So that's why Tabasco comes in a little perfume bottle. Sometimes I'm telling you guys that is the secret sauce. That conversation you're having with that person, you're thinking in the back of your mind, this person is never your new your former Marine that just signed on with your team here. You know, she might be thinking this person is never going to need financial advice. They don't even have a job. Why am I talking to this person? You know, give it a shot. Give them a little time. If they're in your fertile field, if they're, again, you're not at the pool hall, you're down at the networking meetings. They're there, okay. They might just pay you a little dividend that'll be part of your story later.
Yep. Well, great advice. And I have loved this whole conversation, especially defining what we see or what we perceive as ROI, you know, and just to recap, return on interactions, return on investment, or return on influence. It's up to you to decide how you're going to calculate your ROI. I look forward to seeing you next Monday at 2:00. I do want you to continue the conversation, continue to ask questions in the comments. We will gladly interact with you. Jim, it was great seeing you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Catch us in the next show.
All right, guys. Bye-bye. Have a great week.